typically our leadership team will do their meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays, and they're getting out in the field doing coaching Wednesday and Thursday and part of Friday, right? So it's like sacred space where they don't have to worry about like performance management meetings or meetings. They don't have to worry about their projects that they have to get done to set them up for longer term objectives. That's gonna be on Friday when they look out. They can be really present on Wednesday and Thursday, and that just happens to be when a lot of the team is doing the work, right?
Hey, thanks for joining another episode of Aleph TV. Today, I am joined with my brother in arms, Alex Calof. Again, my name is Hoken. I am the Director of Development here at Aleph, and having Alex on today, and we want to talk about integration. I'll have Alex introduce himself in a sec. He sits in that integrator seat here at Aleph, and want to talk a bit about integration in general, drill down a bit into an area that, as we talk to a lot of companies, tends to be a challenge area, and I think something we really try to focus on here at Aleph. So just around coaching, developing people. So should be a good conversation. Alex, thanks for joining. How are we doing?
Doing good.
Awesome, man. Do you want to, why don't you just introduce yourself, share a little bit about kind of what you do here, and a little personal background context too?
Sure. Yep. Alex Calof. Live here in South Minneapolis with my wife, Lindsay. We got a 3-year-old son right now, and born and raised in Minneapolis, probably never leaving. But yeah, I've kind of sat in that COO and integrator seat within Aleph and Aleph Holdings since 2018. And yeah, that's kind of the passion to work with our teams and empower our teams and develop our people.
So, one of the main things that we are, trying to do with the businesses that we partner with is integration. So, I mean, we kind of talk about this. It's like if there's really something that we bring to these partners, like integration is really what we help with. Yeah. And there's different, there's a lot of different elements to that. But developing a team, building a team. Do you want to maybe just speak to or kind of set the stage of like how to think about integration and like team building? How do we think about that from like a framework standpoint?
Yeah. There's probably 2 pieces, right? We're trying to get to the point where we have 5 names and 5 seats, right? So somebody sitting in that visionary or CEO seat, somebody sitting in that integration seat or COO seat, somebody overseeing sales and marketing, somebody overseeing operations, and somebody sitting in that CFO seat or overseeing finance. But yeah, so maybe I just get into a little bit of our framework for that. I think a big part of our belief is in order for an individual to be successful in their role, there's this 70-20-10 rule, and it's really calling out that people get 10% of what they need through training, and which is like an initial transfer of knowledge, whether that's through an online learning platform, through a series of online courses, or like in the office setting or classroom style training, right? The 20% is through performance management or and hopefully like self-regulated performance management. So that could be, pulling that person out of their day-to-day and out from the field from running fast and sitting down with their supervisor and creating an environment where they kind of review their plan for the year and how that's going and what their goals were for the week and how they did, and it just creates this environment for them to get the direction and support that they need, and help with some work on what are their priorities for the week, what's the learning that they're pulling from last week to apply it to this week, where do they need some skill development, and they get some direction support, right? And kind of the most of the work is actually done through the 70% of what they need is through coaching and transferring skill. And that one-on-one environment can kind of prepare, where is there a skill gap that's creating the performance gap. And the 70% is about the coach getting out into the field with the person and helping them transfer skill on wherever the gap is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And that's, this is, talking about having this conversation. This is what I wanted you to come on and talk about, because we talk to a lot of companies, and one of the things that I've noticed is that there are tools out there to help with that 10%, right? We live in 2024.
Yep.
There's a lot of information out there on the internet. You can buy stuff where it's like SOPs, different things of like how to do a sales process, how to, paint, whatever it might be. The
Yep.
10% is not as hard to solve, I feel like, in 2024. The 20% of that accountability piece, I think that's a culture. Like, you have to develop that takes a little bit more work. But, as we talk to folks, like, the rarest thing tends to be, or the hardest nut to crack tends to be that coaching.
Yeah.
And like that transfer of skill. Can you maybe just talk to, like, when we say coaching, like what does that mean to us? Like, how do you think about that as an integrator of, like, when I'm coaching somebody? Coaching is kind of it's a phrase that could mean different things. What does that mean to you as an integrator?
Yeah. I think it means getting out in the field shoulder to shoulder with somebody while they're doing their job, right? And actually being there and being present and to really figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing what they're doing well to help increase their confidence, right? It's just as much about that as it is developing skill and where there's a gap. But yeah, also maybe demonstrating the little parts of their job that they need to see in order to really grasp the concept. But yeah, the shoulder to shoulder in the field development, observing to understand what's going on and demonstrating to help them gain skill.
Yeah. What are ways that you think people maybe miss the mark on coaching, or when it comes to kind of developing people, like they it doesn't go well? What are some culprits?
Yeah, I think we talk about it often here, right? It's the common mistake is moving from direction to delegation with nothing in between, right? So that's like feeding the direction to somebody in their first 2 weeks of their job, and maybe in a one-on-one meeting once a week, going forward from that, and right, you're doing maybe the 10 and the 20, but then you just delegate from there. Right. And there's usually that just creates this chasm and this big disconnect between the leader and the individual on what's really going on. And yeah, right. There's relational dynamics from that. There is, it becomes a kind of a flight or you got a fight. It becomes a
fight or flight. Yeah.
fight or flight type of environment. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. And there's just so much that can be done with feeding them a little bit of your time every week, especially in the first 60 to 90 days. Right.
Yeah, totally.
So,
and I've certainly experienced that, or I think most people have, where if you start a job, and honestly, some of this could relate to like a job. This also could relate to a task. Like, if there's a new task or a new responsibility that you take on, and somebody goes from, like, they just train you on it real quick, but it's real quick. It's kind of like they give you the 10%, and then like a week later, they give you the 20% of accountability. But there's nothing in between. It's like super stressful. Like, there's a lot of relational element to that.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So there's probably 10 core tasks in every job. And you're probably at a different stage of skill level and a different stage level of commitment in each one of those tasks in your day-to-day, right? And I think, exceptional coaches and exceptional leaders can meet people where they're at and recognize that and kind of adjust their leadership style accordingly.
Yeah.
Right? There's that good book called, I think it's 5-Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard that highlights the skill of situational leadership. And like that's something that we spend a lot of time on with our leaders at Aleph, and a lot of time on as we develop people in the skill of coaching, and just makes a world of a difference just to have good relationships, build good culture, and for people to kind of fast track in their skill development if a leader can get really good at that.
I'm curious, like, talk about your experience a little bit, like where, because I know that this is something that you can speak to academically, so to speak. Like you have a lot of knowledge around leadership, but I also know, being around you and just being a friend, like you love this stuff. You love developing people and coaching people, and you really, really enjoy it. Like, where did you get like introduced to coaching, or like this kind of skill development transferring? Like, what was some of your background that you get, like, introduced you to these concepts that you bring and help us with at Aleph?
Yeah. I was part of College Pro Painters for a decade, and we were blessed to be owned by First Service Brands. They had an amazing leadership development program, and I think I had an opportunity for the people that were working with me. They really invested in my leadership skill, and I was blessed with that, right? And I think even going back to running my own small painting company in college, I started to apply it there, right? If I was wearing 10 hats and I was the marketer, I was the finance person, I was the salesperson, I was the project manager, I was all the things that you are in a painting company. And it just kind of, if you're going to grow, that's impossible to sustain.
Right.
And through a certain level of growth. So I just kind of teed up the business that way, even back then, right? I'm going to learn how to do the role in marketing once. And then the goal of that is to gain the skill so I can help transfer it to others, right? And that's not just meaningful for me to wear less hats and be more free, but it's also meaningful to create an opportunity for somebody. And that's where I just think there's a lot of mutual benefit, right? You get to create opportunities for people. You get to help them grow in their own career development, and create income for their families, and achieve some of their personal goals through that. And I think that's where a lot of the passion comes from. But
Yeah. Maybe talk about, so like if somebody, I feel like coaching and development is one of these things that a lot of business owners, it's like they know that they need to do more of. It's just like, finding the time to do it or doing it effectively or whatnot. And I think too, sometimes it's maybe a little rushed whenever they do get to it. Maybe like talk about like preparing for a coaching event. I know this is something that I've, and again, you and we've done life and business together. There have been times where, you coaching me on how to coach, and I know you've done this with others, of like taking the time to prepare for a coaching event, and just from like putting your head in the right space, putting your heart in the right space. Like, how do you, when you're going to coach somebody, like, how do you prepare for it?
Yeah. I was just on the phone with one of our partners, actually preparing for a visit in Portland next week, working with one of their salespeople. We were doing this together, right? I think it's kind of a balance of, the tactical, practical, where's the skill gap and what are we trying to solve? And also just in kind of an emotional check-in. Personally, what do I need to put on the shelf in order to be present with this person and be leading them in a healthy way? And then also checking in on, where are they at and why are they at where they're at, given the interactions I've had with them, and how am I trying to help them through kind of their emotional state. But there's a lot of depth there. But on the tactical practical, right? That is one of the reasons why we do, we call them goal alignment meetings, right? Every week is we're kind of identifying, hey, you have a 52-week plan to get to your $1.8 million sales goal. Last week's goals were this, and this is how you're doing this month. And where's the performance gap, right? Is it related to success ratio, bidding, margin, getting enough bids, getting enough accounts, right? Where's there a performance gap? And then you really can dive in from there and to, okay, what's causing the performance gap? You know, really getting down to, all right, if it's success ratio, what part of the sales process is this person really strong at? What part of the sales process are they less confident in that we really need to help grow some skill in, and aligning with the learner on that, right? And getting to the point where we just like have a few measurable outcomes of, okay, this is probably why you're not booking as many jobs on the spot or in the same week as most people do. And let's set an outcome around how you create urgency and how you really understand what's factoring into the homeowner's decision, right? And partnering with them on that. But yeah, so there's like the tactical practical of what's the performance gap, what's the skill gap, associated skill gap, what's a measurable outcome that's really going to move, show that we've gained skill and is going to move the needle going forward. Yeah. And then there's the kind of the partnering of how we're going to do that event, right? What's my role going to be? Aligning with them up front of, what do you want my role to be? Do you learn better if I demonstrate? Do you learn better if I just observe and we give feedback after? Is it better for you to have a little bit of both? Just really aligning with them of your role is kind of an important part too, right?
Sure.
That can really throw things sideways and hurt the relationship if it's not established. You know, if it's not established and it's not aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe the last piece is just kind of the like preparing yourself stage of, you know, where am I at emotionally in this day coming off of whatever I just came out of, and what do I need to kind of put on the shelf to be present. And
yeah, talk about that a little bit. Like, I don't know, is there any like tricks or tips or like just to slow yourself down, things that you like, tools that you've used to help you, you know, maybe get out of one headspace and into another?
yeah, yeah, I think there's, you know, little things like just how do you prepare for a coaching day and with your schedule for the week on, you know, typically our leadership team will do their meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays, and they're getting out in the field doing coaching Wednesday and Thursday and part of Friday, right? So it's like sacred space where they don't have to worry about like performance management meetings or meetings. They don't have to worry about their projects that are they have to get done to set them up for, you know, longer term objectives. That's gonna be on Friday when they look out. They can be really present on Wednesday and Thursday, and that just happens to be when a lot of the, you know, team is doing the work, right? So I think there's some priority management that really helps. There's, you know, the things going right into the event, right? Of just, there's this thing called the transition curve, and it's kind of your emotional state as you go through a task, and it can also be how when you go through in a day or a season, and really just identifying where am I at on that thing right now, and what kind of emotions am I feeling, and how could that impact my leadership with this person? How could that impact my ability to be present? And what do I got to do to kind of self-manage to make sure I'm there for this person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, a big piece of it, of being there for that person. I think like that supportive element, helping them. And that's like, it's hard work, but that's where a lot of the payoff really can be. Maybe talk about, you know, you've developed different people, you've coached different people over time. Are there, maybe share some that have been really impactful for you, where it's like you can kind of look back and, man, I put a lot of work in, or there's some good hours spent, but you can see like kind of the impact of that coaching, and an example of how that's been meaningful for you.
Yeah, like, are you talking about somebody coaching me or me working with somebody on our team?
Both are great. Maybe somebody you coached,
Yeah.
and then if something comes to mind of like you being developed too, that'd be great.
Yeah. Just within Aleph here, Mark Nelson is somebody I've worked with since 2018, right? So it's been how many years now? What is that? 6 or 7 years?
Yeah.
And it's been a joy and a pleasure. Just an awesome human being, just amazing person. But Mark started out, I think, in 2018. He was coming off of being a painter and a foreman into a role as a project manager for the first year, and that's when I started to engage with him. And we worked on the core skills in that role, and he got to the point where he really perfected the system and perfected his skill to an exceptional level, and he was ready to take on direct reports, which we needed him to. Right, the business grew from 2 million to 5 million over a short period of time, and so he was able to kind of take the system that he perfected and the skill that he had and transferred it to those two PMs, right? And then, over this 6-year period, that just kind of rinse and repeat, right? Next, he took on a team of like that project management team turned from 2 to 4 to what now is 7. And also in those 3 years, he perfected the system to lead the coordination role, right? And he has a team of those 7 project managers. He has a team of 5 coordinators, right, that he's now leading, and he's doing a really good job, right? Those people are now becoming leaders of their functions. So that's probably been one of the most fruitful and joyful experiences for both him and I think. And it's been fun. He's I've kind of been in that integrator seat, that COO seat with Paris Painting from the last 5, 6, 7 years here, from was 2.2 to hopefully what looks like to be 12 this year. And Mark is like developing into that integration seat and taking on the business. And that's been a powerful thing for his life and his family, and he's continuing to learn and he's thriving in that, right? And he's also creating room, for his team to step up. So yeah, that's probably maybe more than you asked for, but
no, that's great, man.
It's been a fun journey with him for sure.
Yeah, Mark's amazing dude, and it's pretty fun. Of like started as a painter out of college. I'll paint for Jason for a summer while I'm in between, trying to find a job, and a few years later now he's stepping into that integrator role. This is a super cool story. What comes to mind of like for you, where like you've been a recipient of coaching and maybe experiences that were impactful, that kind of showed you the light, so to speak, of like, wow, coaching is important in business?
Yeah. If I think about it, I think, I've been blessed to work with a few visionaries that are very different people. I can speak a little bit to that, and then some like core leadership staff in first service and president roles when I was a VP, right? Dave Richley being one of them, president of our Aleph Ventures team. He spent a lot of time just really investing in me and like the fundamentals of how to be a really good leader. And I just there's so much that I got from that time with him, right? In my early 20s, he was investing in me to be able to gain those skills, and much appreciated. And it's been super valuable long-term. And so Tony Valley, I would just want to honor him too. Was the CEO of College Pro for the time that I was there. And him and I went on to do a little leadership consulting for a couple of years after our time at College Pro, and just a very bigger picture, more strategic mind. So I got that flavor of a leader, and worked with a high level visionary for a couple of years, and really working through how do we build a culture in an organization? How do we build a healthy performance culture, and what does that look like? And how do we develop high level leaders? And so that was a blessing. And then the time here with Chet, just a super strong visionary with a pure great heart, right? And can really see what something can become, and like the wisdom and vision that kind of comes through his brain, and how he can feed that into me to start to integrate and into the culture and in through the team, right? And that one has felt like more like a partnership than anything, and I've just like really appreciated that. I don't think there's very many times where I felt like Chet's like acting like my boss right now.
Sure.
It's been kind of, no, we're like partnered in this. There's mutual respect between the visionary and the integrator role. Like we're friends. We have been friends for a long time outside of work, and we're business partners. We both wear shareholder hats, and so that dynamic has been just really fruitful. And I think he's given me a kind of a different flavor of, and probably strengthened my ability to be more relational, right? Not just tactical, practical, but really connecting at a human level, and a really healthy way. And I know that's a lot of just kind of osmosis being around him, and how he's working with me and leading me, right? So
that's awesome, man. And in those too, it's like I feel like the through line there is that human element, which I think when coaching is at its best, it's like a real human connection is happening. It's like there is, like you said, the tactical, practical stuff, but to the degree that you can see the value of the other person, their goals, their desires, what they want to get out of it. And I think that's where the most impactful coaching, in whatever form it is, if it's a sales manager and a salesperson, or it's a COO and a CEO, a visionary integrator, like wherever that kind of person to person development's happening, if like that heart level human connection piece, if that's happening, good. That's the secret sauce. Good stuff happens.
Relationship first, right? Or like number one core value. Until that's there, until that's established, it's like, let's not even enter into some of the skill development stuff, right? And it just keeps it light, right? If we have that kind of time that we've had together, having some fun, or doing whatever ahead of time, it makes all the difference. Getting to know them, what makes them tick, how they grew up, what their background is, what their family background is, what their family is in the current day-to-day, what's their day-to-day life like all of that has to come first in order for that trust to be there, and for them really to know that you care, right? At the end of the day. And
man. And that's, I think, sometimes maybe a misconception with integration, or like accountability, or it's like, it's the best integration is very, very, it's not just like numbers and spreadsheets and models and accountability. It's like the best integration is like human to human connection.
Yeah. And that's how we try to set up our culture, right? We talk about a lot, like this is a entrepreneurial culture. It's a culture of self-regulation. If I ever have to like manage you, it's probably not going to work.
Right.
I want to be able to lead, and I want to be able to help. And the true accountability is just like us empowering them with, hey, here's the financial model, and here's the plan. Why don't you create your plan for how much money you want to make this year, given what our financial model is? And my role in this is really to support you getting there, right? Then the accountability is their plan and their numbers, and I get to lead and help, right? That's the dynamic that we really try to set up.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Well, dude, I think that's a good place for us to wrap the convo. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
Appreciate for those tuning in. If you have any questions, you want to hit us up, continue the conversation on this topic, feel free to reach out. You can go to our website, connect with us through that. You can direct message us on the socials. We'd love to get in touch and have a conversation. If you want to hear or learn any more about what we're doing with our partnerships, happy to chat about that as well. So, Alex, thanks again, brother.
Thanks,
Um,
man. Thanks for having me. Yep.
yeah, have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time.